We noted previously that from the standpoint of the Pshuta Shel Mikra, it appears that Yehuda was somewhat concerned that Tamar was the cause of the deaths of his first two sons, Er and Onan, and therefore he really had no intention to allow Tamar to marry his youngest son, Shelah, and therefore he sent her back to her parents' home, Shvi Almana Beit Avich, which Rashi understands to mean that he had freed her from any obligation of marrying the third son. On this basis, the Rebbe rejected the approach of the Radak, who argued that as a Shomeret Yavam, Tamar, for all intents and purposes, was Ki'ilu hi Eshet Ish. She had the status of a married woman, and therefore Yehuda was justified in demanding that Hotziyuha v'teisaref. And furthermore, even if she was an Eshet Ish, and note the wording of the Radak, Ki'ilu hi Eshet Ish, as if she had the status of an Eshet Ish, and assuming, as some maintain, that Yehuda followed what was later to become Torah law, within Torah law, a Shomeret Yavam who enters into an outside relationship is in violation of a law ta'aseh, but not one that attracts the death penalty. And secondly, to justify that she should receive sreifah, burning at the stake, on account of the fact that she was a Bat Kohen, Torah law mandates this penalty only for the Bat Kohen who at the time was married or engaged. Tamar was neither married nor engaged, and therefore not subject to sreifah as Yehuda demanded. A different approach is proposed by the Mizrahi and the Maharal in his Sefer the Gur Aryeh, in which it is argued that Tamar was subject to the death penalty on account of the fact that she violated the tribal laws of harlotry. The Gutnik Chumash paraphrases the Mizrahi and the Gur Aryeh that in those days it had been universally accepted or decreed that a harlot is punished by the death penalty. Tamar, however, was sentenced to the more severe penalty of burning, sreifah, because she was a priest's daughter. Or alternatively, she was given the harsh penalty in order to set an example to the generation that harlotry was not to be tolerated. I should like to digress for a moment and offer my 2 cents as to how one deals with historical facts incorporated by the Parshanim to explain the biblical text. The Mizrahi and the Gur Aryeh lived in the 14 to 1500s, one in Constantinople, Turkey, the other in Prague, Bohemia, and in their commentary an assertion is made regarding the legal system for communities of the Middle East, 1500 BCE, 3,000 years earlier. And this creates somewhat of a dilemma in that one can find absolutely no corroboration in support of this assertion. As such, a thinking person would most probably need to reject their understanding of the text, should a better option be available. A second approach is to maintain that all statements made by the various Parshanim over time came about through Ruach HaKodesh, and therefore, in this case, as with most statements made by the Parshanim, need to be accepted as fact on account of this Ruach HaKodesh connection, even in the face of evidence that contradicts the interpretation. This certainly is not a new issue and surfaces particularly in areas where halacha is based upon assumptions that are at odds with the science of the day. I have problems with both extremes. First, to reject the commentary on the basis of lack of corroboration, or to accept everything that is said on the basis of Ruach HaKodesh. I would prefer to take a third option, and that is to treat all such statements not as a historical fact, but rather as a possible option based upon or drawing from the value system of the times, such as in the days of the Mizrahi and the Gur Aryeh, which in this case might reflect attitudes towards harlotry and prostitution in their respective countries. They, as we, were coping with a given text using the information that was available at the time. The Rebbe maintains that the parameters of Rashi in his commentary is limited to the Pshuta Shel Mikra, and therefore he proceeds to demonstrate how within this standard of Pshuta Shel Mikra, the Gur Aryeh's approach that Tamar violated the laws of harlotry is not tenable.